All right, let's start. Hello, everyone. Salam, namaste, adab, and welcome to today's event. Today, we have a very prominent speaker, Aruna Roy, a very prominent Indian political and social activist, who is a co-founder of the Mazdoor Kisan Shakti Saangathan, MKSS. She is a Raman Magsaysay awardee and well known for her work leading to the RTI, Right to Information Act. And she's going to talk. The topic is asserting the right to question in challenging times, local and the global. I'm inviting Rakshita Swami for a formal introductory remarks for the theme as well as for the speaker. Rakshita Swami is the founder and director of the Social Accountability Forum for Action and Research, SAFER. She is connected with this Kisan Shakti Saangathan also. And concluding remarks will be given by Nakshita Udipa, who is a member of the same organization. They all are activists in the cause for working people in India. So welcome you all, and now I invite Rakshita Swami for the introductory remark. Please.
Thank you, Razaji. It is a matter of great honor and privilege for me to introduce Arunaji to all the participants and to all those who are listening to this conversation. Arunaji, who I very fondly and refer to as Aji. So, I mean, an internet search of Aruna and everything will give you the usual information about and the details of a rich and lasting influence in public and political life, which starts from her resigning from the IS in 1975 in her pursuit to find a more authentic framework that enabled her to actually question and engage with issues of development and marginalization. Her time with the Social Work and Research Center, Barefoot College, followed by her, what you also referred to, her journey of co-founding and setting up the Mazdoor Kisan Shakti Saangathan in 1987, a movement that became really the driving force behind very, very significant and successful campaigns that brought out legislations like the Right to Information Act and the National Rural Employment Guarantee Act. She, like you mentioned, has been an awardee of the Raman Magsaysay Award for Community Leadership in 2000 and was also named as one of the 100 most influential people in the world by Time magazine in 2011 and by BBC in 2024. But the privilege that I referred to of having the opportunity to introduce Aji and Arunaji is beyond what the internet and what public information will also curate around her. Arunaji is a person with extraordinary capabilities of comradeship that weave between being a friend, a mentor, an ally, a critique, for people spanning across age groups, whether it's young students to very enthusiastic activists who begin their work to mid-age activists who are questioning the relevance and the point of it all, to many older people who she shares many important and significant journeys with. Throughout her life and her work, she has dealt with questions of power and politics, not just against entities and external powers like the state, the market, but even in her own personal life, in her community, in her friendships, to really indicate that how political her personal essentially is. Arunaji, the topic of today's conversation that Arunaji will have and the sort of presentation that she's going to make around, it's also the essential role that she plays in different campaigns and causes of bringing light to the relevance of the right to question and why it is at the core of every substantial welfare right, developmental right, citizenship right. Her whole body of work and just her constant conceptualization and articulation has been around how we can co-create, nurture, and develop structures and platforms that can really enable this right to question to thrive. And this comes with trying to understand how power clutches and operates to thwart this basic right at multiple levels, whether it's at your panchayat, whether it's at your block, whether it's at the district, whether it's against the state, the country, and the world. So I'm very keen to hear, to continue to hear and learn from what Arunaji will have to say in today's session. And I think it's, though you did mention that there's so much of the body of work around Arunaji and RTI. I think she's so much more beyond just an RTI activist, and so many battles against power that she, along with so many comrades, colleagues, friends, sathis, have fought with, have consistently shown us one way at a time, one day at a time, how to hold truth to power. And we all really look forward and continuing struggles, whether it's during elections, or exploitation against gig workers, or as more and more issues emerge that we try and work with in terms of newer campaigns, we continue to look at her for some kind of guidance, for some kind of understanding of how to hold truth to power in a sense and in principle. And I now really look forward to, and I invite Arunaji for this lecture, and I look forward to hearing and learning more of what she has to say.
Hello, Arunaji.
Yes, thank you very much, Rakshita.
Can you turn on your video?
Yes, I can. I must, yes. Thank you very much, Rakshita. It's because of people like Rakshita and Nachiket and many others who are listening in, actually, even from India, that big campaigns for democratic rights and for the right to question have prospered in this country. And for those of us who think there are single leaders or single leaders and single icons, let's forget it, because all democratic action is collective. And if I rely on Rakshita for so many things today, she has been responsible for spearheading social audit in India. She's been also responsible for spearheading these very, very important laws and policies with Nikhil Day on the gig workers. Nachiket Udupa has been phenomenally important in building grassroots movements. He has been important in mobilizing and fighting with the farmers' revolt. I mean, there has been so many things. The peasants at the farmers' agitation, Nachiket was there day in and day out near Delhi on one of the borders. So let us just forget a single individual for the moment, and let's look at processes and what it is that makes some things work and some things not work. Since I have had a checkered downward slope, if you like, if you think of power as the centralized notion of the corridors of South Block, then I've come down from the South Block to a village. And I would like to just show you very quickly a photograph of my home and office and place where Rakshita and Nachiket have also lived for considerable periods of time, which is a small village called Dev Dungri in central Rajasthan. I'll just show you a quick snapshot so that you understand where you will locate me. While the photograph comes alive there, now this is the house which really gave birth to two massive campaigns. We were not discussing issues in Delhi, sitting in air-conditioned rooms. We were not discussing issues with the literate people who claim that they are the only ones who can lead India. The ideas for change, the ideas for improvement, the ideas for taking on democratic battles and sustaining them for 11 years or 12 years, as the case was in some of them, came from this house. And in this house, it's become a symbol. It's also for us a place which has become an iconic place for thinking of how you can build grassroots movements, and the grassroots movements can actually take you from panchayat to parliament. Because by looking at this house, don't get misled, because people who lived in this house and who lived nearby led a campaign which ended in the Lok Sabha in 2005 and got two major laws passed, continued to struggle and got other laws passed by 2014, still continue to struggle with state governments and continue to get laws and policies passed, which are people's laws and policies. All this began actually with a very simple, small, very pertinent point of livelihood, wages, and life. It all began with asking for how and why can't you pay my minimum wage? When I've worked 8 hours in the day, what makes you decide that I haven't worked and pay me less than the minimum wage? So that question that was raised actually led to the RTI. It's a phenomenal journey. There is a book which we have collectively put together, which I've only the scribe for it, called the RTI story. I don't know if it's available in the US, but it's certainly available in India. And in this book, we trace the history of how it began. First, the struggle for minimum wages, then slowly building up into a larger campaign for the right to know in many areas, the right to question. Because if you can't question, you can't get to the truth. And if you can't get to the truth, the road to your whatever you want to get in life is littered with corruption, with the misuse of power. It's littered with people who take you and your likes for granted. There is the whole abrogation of power. It's a centralization of power. It's the abuse of power. So the act of questioning began with, where is my muster roll? Where is my wage list? Where is my labor list? Where are the rules which say, show me a treasury bill to tell me that I have been working there for 8 hours, and what makes you deny me that wage? I have very little time, so I can't go through the entire story, but I'd like to draw your attention to an extraordinary human being called Mohanji, who was a Dalit, who was a poet, but illiterate. He composed beautiful verses. He composed lyrics. He composed music, set them to popular music. He was a man who was the biggest Kabir Bhajanchi in our area. We knew more than 300 Kabir songs, but he was illiterate. Now, if you take any of these indicators that you have, you would dismiss him because he would be totally useless for you. But it's the fact that you must look for these extraordinary talents in very ordinary people, the extraordinary in the ordinary, that makes our lives rich. It makes the life of a democracy rich, but it also makes us listen to and understand what makes people not move, what stagnates their lives, what is the structure of power and how is it misused to ensure that they don't move. And if you look at today's condition where we are working, because many people ask us, oh, why are you still working there? And I say to them, you stop school because you've gone to the 11th standard. There are still many people who need to go to class 1. So the issues change, the problems change, but the nature of oppression has marginally been changed by some of our campaigns, some of our various laws that have come into place. But the nature of the polity still has a long way to go because it remains a secret, centralized, non-sharing, unequal society which dominates nothing, all your various political structures you brought in, including the electoral process, and it makes you stagnate there. And therefore, the only way you can get out of it is by asking questions all the time of the people in power. There are structured ways in which we have asked those questions. There are unstructured ways in which we've asked those questions. And there are mobilizations that have taken place over a long, long time. If you look at the way we live, you and I, even we are victims. Let's not think we are above it, because we live in a conflicted zone between two structures, two sets of values. On the one hand, people like me swear by the Indian Constitution, and we know that without the Indian Constitution, we are really nothing. So for us, the Indian Constitution is the most important public treatise. हिंदी में बोलेंगे तो हमारा ग्रंथ है. कोई पूछता आपका ग्रंथ क्या है तो मैं कहती हूँ संविधान मेरा ग्रंथ है. That is my ग्रंथ. Public works में, public life में, my ग्रंथ is the संविधान. So if you think of it as संविधान, then and you live according to its norms, and it's the preamble which talks about equality, fraternity, liberty on the one hand. And if you turn your way around and look at all of you, even some of us around, we live trapped in traditional values, in hierarchies, in oppressive structures, which are extremely unequal with women even today, unequal with caste, the lower caste, the Dalits. We don't call them lower caste anymore. We call them scheduled caste and Dalits. You also are very unfair with minorities. You're unfair with people who are tribals. You are unfair with people who don't have the appearance of being sophisticated at many levels. We are really an unequal society. The inequality of society will not allow us to move unless we break that inequality. And please believe me, and if you don't believe me, you can read Socrates and you can read Bertrand Russell. I'm not going to quote all these things to you today, though I read a lot, and I read political philosophy, and I read books that interest me, but I'm not going to quote to that. I'm going to quote to you the ordinary people I've met and what they have said. And the breaking of that will simply not come. Power does not distribute itself. Power does not on its own unpack itself. Power has to be forced to unpack. Power has to be forced to disseminate its various areas of power. It doesn't happen on its own. And for that, you need a dynamic society. When you think of civil society, you only think of people who live in homes with access to computers and so on. And the poor are a category you always shunt to the margins. But believe me, I feel that if any change is possible in India, it can only be possible if we can change and educate our people who are really in want to understand the mechanics of governance, the mechanics of the way in which power is withheld from them, the mechanics through which, when they ask a question, they are called Naxalites, they are called anti-nationals, they're called anything. There are a dozen appellatives now, and they are put behind bars and they rot there for years, even if it's a small section of the erstwhile Indian Penal Code that was applied to them. They've spent more days in prison than the sentence of that particular section would have allowed them, would have put them in. So in this kind of situation, we have to think of why do our Indian people not agitate for these rights? And if you live like I do, and I did for so many years, because I came to rural Rajasthan in 1975, which is a long, long way. I don't know how many years is it now, 50 some years. And I have understood that it is these people who will really rise. And they are the people who really want change. And because of this faith in the fact that they really would question, regardless of their condition, that the right to information law was fashioned by them the principles were fashioned by them in villages and in public hearings and protests in rural Rajasthan, though the law was fashioned by Justice Saangathan in Delhi as the chair of the Press Council of India. But he was a very wise man. So where he fashioned the law, where he brought in postulates, he checked with us about whether it would work in a rural area. As an erstwhile administrator, I can tell you that all implementation in India has failed because we just don't look at the possibilities of its implementation in a specific area. We imagine what it will do, and the easiest way to do it is to sit comfortably far away from people and fashion something, and inevitably it is a disaster. But the right to question requires a lot of guts. And that's where I feel most of us feel that we don't want our comfort and our convenience to be disrupted, and we stay within comfort zones and never ask the questions which trouble us. Some of you I know in this, even my friend D.C. Agarwal, who stays in the US, has asked uncomfortable questions in the US of the Indian government. Many of you must have asked, but I'm not talking about you. I'm talking about generally what goes in the name of civil society. Ravish Kumar, whom I don't have to introduce to you, who's been one of our biggest TV anchors and who is a remarkable man in and of himself, and has produced the best TV programs. I asked him a few days ago, I said to him, what is that troubles you the most? And उन्होंने मुझे कहा कि अब जब जनता जनार्दन ही बिक चुका है तो किसके लिए झगड़ेंगे हम? ये जनता जनार्दन उनके भाषा में भी वो लोग हैं जो शहरों में रहते हैं, जो ऐसे जगह रहते हैं जिनका पूरे co-opt हो गए हैं into a new system of thought and thinking. So why have we ever wondered why they've been co-opted? What is the reason for their co-option? And are we going to just accept these simplistic definitions of why they've been co-opted? Are we going to go further beyond? Are we going to look at the interplay between social and political power? Are we going to look at how traditions like caste or identity voting or all these various structures have been used to corner power? And are we going to question how that can be played out or not played out? Are we going to sit in Delhi and talk about it? Are we going to sit with them and talk about it? It makes a huge difference. And I will say to you that in the initial days of Devdungi, when I went there, all my friends from urban area and all my literate and highly educated friends said to me, you will fail. What are you going to do in that hut? You saw that hut? They said, you are just indulging yourself. You want to live in that hut? I said, I want to live there and I want to work and be like the poor. I'm not interested in living in a city, and I don't think anything I fashion in a city will ever be useful for people in the villages. And they said to me, indulge yourself, but nothing can happen. But things did happen. There has to be 2 or 3 things, I think, that we must understand from all the campaigns that Rakshita, Nachiket, and I, and many more who are listening to it have understood. The first thing is that you mustn't have a timeline. You can't say to yourself, I have to do this in 2 days and go back, or 4 days and go back. You have to give time for the idea to gel, to originate, to facilitate, so that people can frame the right questions, and the right questions can be asked to the right persons. And when they are thwarted or when violence is unleashed on them, there are enough communities of people who will fight for their rights. So that's how, in the case of, and then you have to sit with them, because they are divided. They are divided across caste lines, they are divided across gender lines, they are divided across religious lines, and you have to sit with them and talk to them and make them understand how these divisions have to be set aside if they really want to get better and get a better deal in life. And in these efforts, I think unless you live with people and you gain their affection and confidence, you're not going to work. It doesn't mean you have to gain the confidence and affection of thousands of people, but at least in that huge segment, you have to have many hundreds who will understand you, and you have to behave like them. You have to learn their language. India is a language, so many diverse languages in this country. I'm a Tamil speaker by birth. I live in the north. I married a Bengali. So I know that languages are very sensitive zones, but they're not only sensitive zones, they're political zones. Because if you don't speak in the language of people, you simply cannot communicate to them. So at the height of the Gujarat genocide, we were fighting for the right to employment, MGNREGA. And one of our slogans was, very powerful slogan, so that the people coined it, Trishul nahi, talwar nahi, kaam ka adhikar chahiye. Please don't divide us into this community and that community and this caste and that caste. Our main interest is survival and livelihood. So Trishul nahi, talwar nahi, kaam ka adhikar chahiye. We want employment to feed our children, to look after ourselves, to survive. These are powerful slogans, and people made them, not us. And in the same way, when the Right to Information campaign, we went to Delhi with Justice Savants, presenting the law to the people, the elite in Delhi, with 2 ex-prime ministers, to so many others. Sushila, who went with us, who just passed class 4, said, I'm here. So one journalist asked her, what are you going to do? These 2 ex-prime ministers have not passed the law. What can you do? You're only a illiterate woman. She said, no, I've passed class 4. He said, class 4? What are you going to do with it? So she said to him, I don't know how many of you are Hindi speakers, but I'll say it in both languages. She said to him, मैं बेटे को 10 रुपया देकर बाजार भेजती हूँ, वापस आता है तो उससे हिसाब लेती हूँ. ये सरकार मेरे नाम से अरबों खरबों रुपए खर्च करता है, हिसाब नहीं लूंगी क्या? ये हमारा पैसा, हमारा हिसाब. It was a slogan that went in, translated into all the Indian languages. It went all over India, became an important way of organizing and communicating with people about the information, the right to information, how information was the only way you could frame the correct questions so that you can actually put people who are exploiting you or exploiting the system, who are draining the economy in a space where they are legally liable to answer you. So the Right to Information campaign, she defined in 4 words. I would have, as you can imagine, I'm talking to you for so long to define something, but she said it in 4 words. And these are the people we call, अरे इनको कुछ पता नहीं है, इनको समझ में नहीं आता है. So I would say to you, every community has intelligence, has aptitude, understands. And I would say that I feel extremely small when I see my Dalit friend Northi. She has survived. She survived, has become the Sarpanch. She's traveled all over the world, but she has remained what she was. And she still has the courage to live that life. I say to myself, how can I ever say that I know more or I have more courage than Northi? She has weathered poverty, illness, struggled with hard labor and everything else, and she's still hopeful, and she still survives, and she still struggles for all the values and principles the Constitution had given to us. But she asked one of the most important questions: to why is my wage less than the other person, which led to a Supreme Court case in which she won with a single bench and with a double bench. And it's one of the landmark judgments of the Supreme Court on minimum wages, but it is not in her name because she refused to lend her name. It is known as Sanjeev Roy versus the government of Rajasthan because Sanjeev Roy, Bunker Roy, my husband, lent his name because he was thought we were all very silly. This is 1981 when we said, oh, well, how can we do this and that? He said, you're completely stupid women. And he filed a PIL, and he was right then that we should have filed the PIL, and we won the case. Now, Northi is a remarkable woman. And if you see her walking by you on the road, you wouldn't even stop to ask her whether she knew anything. So that's why I feel that to get these gems of ideas, to get these extraordinary things, to ask the right questions and go the right way, we have to be open to all kinds of people asking those questions. Caste and gender are issues on which there has been so much suppression, repression, and so many atrocities on people of caste, of gender, and now on religious biases. And in all this, if we question, they are in deep trouble. So what they do to us is they stop us from questioning. The moment you question, as I said before, the moment you ask a question, you become culpable of any kind of crime. You can be a terrorist, you can be anti-national, you can be, an urban Naxalite, you can be a Khan market elite. There are many words they use for us because they just do not want the people in power, do not want to be asked intelligent questions for which there are no answers. So the reason why the right to information took off so very well, I would like to share, if I can, a couple of small clips because I think words are very inadequate. There are songs and music, and there's theater, and there is also the power of the people. So I'll just introduce to you how important music was to all of us. The first big dharna, which was held in 1996, was held in a small town called Piyawar, not small, a biggish town in central Rajasthan, which has now become a district. We sat there for 40 days and we collected 86,000 rupees in cash. The Mazdoor Kisan Shakti Saangathan does not take any funds, institutional funds from anybody. We live on crowdfunding. And in that crowdfunding, we collected 80,000 rupees and it was transparently there for anyone to see who gave what money and what we spent it on. 400 villagers gave us, every village gave us 4 kilos of whatever grain they were eating. Women and men came and spent time on the dharna. We sang, we had creative work, we had theater, we discussed wages, We had on the 1st of May, we had May Day, we had all the trade unions come and work with us. We had poetry sessions, we had Kavi Sammelans, we had everything in that place in the middle of the marketplace where we sat on Dharna. Now that place has become extraordinary. But some of the songs we sang there were songs created by people. There was no single author to any of those songs. And I think we are going to play you one of those songs if we can, Main Nahi Manga. And you should hear this. It's become a very popular song, including one chief minister of Rajasthan and many others against whom it is pitted. Still like it, because it has a lilt, it's a smart song, it's a witty song, and it has a huge amount of energy. I'll just play a few lines of that song and then we'll continue and I'll finish quickly.
सभी माननीय सदस्यों का, सभी नेताओं का।
Oh, you played the wrong one. Sorry.
मजदूर और किसान एक कई चीज मांगो छवर कई नहीं मांगे माँ की कई मनसा है जो ये गीत आपने पता लागी तो वो मैं आपने सुना रही हूँ। अरे सोना चांदी मैं नहीं मांगा, मैं लमाड़िया मैं नहीं मांगा, मोटा बंगला मैं नहीं मांगा, बंगला में गाड़ी मैं नहीं मांगा, गाड़ी में कुत्तो मैं नहीं मांगा, टाके कुत्तो मैं नहीं मांगा, टाके साकल मैं नहीं मांगा, मोटो बंगलो मैं नहीं मांगा, बंगला में परंदो मैं नहीं मांगा, रामदम गमलो मैं नहीं मांगा, गमला में लेलड़ी मैं नहीं मांगा, मारुति गाड़ी मैं नहीं मांगा, मोटे साकार मैं नहीं मांगा, हीरो होंडा मैं नहीं मांगा। तुम्हारा सबका दिमाग खराब हो गया। अरे भाया लोग दुनिया के लिए मरे थे क्यों मैं नहीं मांगा। काम की बता, काम कहीं करो, मजदूरी करो। अच्छा मजदूर हो की? अरे मैं समझ गया मजदूरों की आदत खराब हो यार। थाने कहीं चाहे बताऊं? थाने चाहे पेप्सी कोला मैं नहीं मांगा, कैंपा कोला मैं नहीं मांगा, लिमका सिमका मैं नहीं मांगा, मैंगो फ्रूटी मैं नहीं मांगा, बिस्लरी मैं नहीं मांगा, बियर की बोतल मैं नहीं मांगा, दारू की बोतल मैं नहीं मांगा, दारू की थैली मैं नहीं मांगा। अब थाने को दिमाग खराब हो गया। धरती पे चीजें सगली बता दी थे क्यों मैं नहीं मांगा।
सब चोरा के रेशम की चीजें बताई।
मजदूर हो हाँ चीजें वो खाई नहीं चाहे। एक काम कर सको ये कोई बेरो देखो जी में पानी नहीं होवे और बी में जार धमाधम। भाई साहब इसके अलावा कोई चीज नहीं है यार। अच्छा काम कहीं करो फेमिन में और मस्टरों में नाम लिखे और पूरी मजदूरी देवे नहीं देवे। अरे मैं समझ गया थाने कहीं चाहे बताऊं थाने चाहे मस्टोड़ा की निकला मैं मांगा, मस्टोड़ा की निकला मैं मांगा, आकी फोटो कॉपी मैं मांगा, एक बिल बाउचर मैं मांगा, आकी फोटो कॉपी मैं मांगा, पंचायत को खर्चो मैं मांगा और लेखो जोखो मैं मांगा। अरे माँ का रुपया मैं मांगा, पंचायत का रुपया मैं मांगा, विकास का रुपया मैं मांगा, देश का रुपया मैं मांगा, खर्चा को हिसाब मैं मांगा, सूचना को अधिकार मैं मांगा।
Mohan ji, whom I talked about, the bard, he sang a song which went viral. There was no social media in the mid-80s, when the mid-90s, when we were sitting on dharna and going from place to place talking about right to information. How do you explain to people the power of information on records? So he coined these two lines and he said, I'll just chant them, I won't sing them. He said, पहले वाले चोर भाया बंदूकाओं मारता है, अबे वाले चोर तो कलमाओं मारे रे राज चोरों का। It became viral. Wherever we went, all over Rajasthan, people sang this song. And they understood that somewhere in that record is something worse than a gun that's killing us. So we have to get that information out. And to get that information out, we just have to question. There is no choice. So if you take Manrega, which was another law which we started asking for at the same time, because it was a twin demand. One was for right to information, but we asked for it on a work site. We understood the value of going from the village to parliament. And it was a very long and arduous struggle. But in that long and arduous struggle, we kept asking for how much money are you spending on this? Why can't you spend money on us? What is your budget? What is your policy? What is your allocation of funds? Things they didn't want to disclose. And I remember once going right up to the cabinet secretariat because the panchayat said we have no money. So we went from the panchayat with everyone, from many people in the village and us. We went from the panchayat to the district. The district collector said, I've surrendered the money to the state secretariat. We went to the state secretariat. The state secretariat said, oh, it was unspent balance. We've given it back to the government of India. We went back to the government of India and they said it's the cabinet secretariat. We landed up in the cabinet secretariat and they had no answer for us as to why that money had not been spent on people for whom it was meant. It is very difficult, but it's the only way out if you believe in non-violent struggle. You can't, we don't believe in violence. MKSS doesn't believe in violent struggle. So it was very important for us to understand the passage from this village to parliament. Both these laws went, but Narega had also, both these laws were highly contested laws. And as VP Singh used to say, एक में money नहीं है, एक में मन नहीं है. मन नहीं है for RTI और money नहीं है for NREG. Whenever we ask for it, they say कि नहीं RTI भागा तो हमारा iron frame टूट जाएगा. Even Mr. Manmohan Singh used to say, oh, our iron frame will be destroyed if we give you right to information. And he finally had to give it, but he was very worried. And he had they had an equal argument to why Manrega should not be funded. All the right-wing economists said it should be damned. So we got a huge group of economists who were centrist economists and left economists who argued the fiscal issues out with government. And finally, we got the law. I'm just going to show you a small clip of what happened when Parliament passed MGNREGA. And for the first time in the history of India, independent India, a people's law was passed with unanimously in Parliament. They had no arguments. We went to and testified in front of all the standing committees and select committees. Though there were objections on this, that, and the other, nobody could say you can't have the right either to information or to work. So I'll just show you that small clip.
जिंदाबाद बोलते हुए मैं एक बार महोदय इस कविता के साथ कि आया रोजगार कानून आवे, बेकारी गरीबी मिट जाएगी, मानवता की काली बिंदी छार हो जाएगी, रोजगार गारंटी कानून जिंदाबाद। आप सभी से प्रार्थना है कि सर्वसम्मत से इस कानून, ऐतिहासिक कानून को पारित किया जाए, जिससे गरीबों के मन में उत्साह बढ़े, रोजगार मिले, पलायन रुके और हिंदुस्तान 2020 में दुनिया की अगली पंक्ति के देशों में चला जाए। यही सपना है। इन्हीं शब्दों के साथ आप सभी को सुविधा दें।
The question is that the bill as amended be passed. Those in favor may say aye. Aye. Those against may say no. I think the ayes have it, the ayes have it. The motion is adopted and the bill as amended is passed.
It was an extremely important moment for us when MGNREGA was passed because it was a poor person's law. They would work. I'm not going to quote figures because I just don't have the time, but the government was not willing to spend less than 1% of its GDP on 40% of poor people who, with dignity, asked for work. They didn't ask for a dole. The Narega law still maintains and is one of the best laws for reducing hunger, poverty, and which allows for dignity, understanding the use of democracy. Stiglitz, when he visited India, he said it's one of the Stiglitz, I don't know if all of you don't know who he is. He is an economist from the US who got the Nobel for economics. He's not a left-wing economist, but he said that it's the law that has provided for both employment, dignity, and understanding democracy. But our own government today is all set to destroy MGNREGA, and I will not go into it. It's all set to destroy the right to information law. I can't go into the details, but the reasons why they're doing it, because these are the two laws that are so intensely interwoven into the life of the community, and from north to south, from Kashmir to Kanyakumari, literally, and from this side from Assam to Punjab. Everywhere people use it. Today, between 40 to 60 lakh people use the RTI every year, and there are crores of people who go to Narega. When COVID hit India and there was counter migration, if it hadn't been for Narega, millions of people would have been dead, or many of them would have been ill, and government could not have coped. The same government which maligned the NREGA relied on MG NREGA to support rural life. I would end by saying that all the structures that we have created for accountability and transparency, whether it's the social audits, which have now become a part of governance, or whether it is the gig workers law, about which I could not talk, which is a modern, which is dealt with the modern arrangements of labor, where you really are on a gig and you only are on a contract for one small activity, and for that you have no social security. We fought and got social security. And for getting unions organized, even in small ways, the big picture is all that we see. We don't realize that the big picture has become possible for those who've got there today, at least in India, have worked 100 years to get there. They worked from the grassroots up. But we people want quick results. We want quick and easy deliveries, but you have to work. And if you want change to happen, you have to ask those right questions all the time. And if we don't ask those questions, there is nothing that can be put in its place. You can ask the questions this way or that way. You can ask the question in a polite manner. You can ask the question in an aggressive manner. You can ask fundamental question. You can ask the Prime Minister for his degree. You can equally ask the local MLA why he has not spent the money, the MLA fund, on you, and why has he misspent the money. You can ask the Sarpanch. You can ask the school teacher. You can ask anybody. And millions of kinds of questions have happened, and direct questions have been asked under RTI. So that's the importance of these various campaigns that have struggled for the right to question. And depending on that, based on that, we've had extraordinary results in the rights-based laws that were passed in the last 10 years of the UPA government. And now, post that, the right to question has been denied systematically. Right to citizenship has been destroyed. So many laws that have come to the citizenship laws, the CAA, and so many other laws and stringent laws have come in, which are now killing your right and my right to ask questions in India. And this is the biggest cut of all, because if you don't ask questions, you're damned. And that's what they're trying to do. And if you look at Gaza, or you look at Ukraine, or you look at any of the international catastrophes, they're telling large sections of people that you don't have the right to question, you don't have the right to speak, you don't have the right to expression, which leads to aggrandizement, to taking away human life, and so many other things that become human rights crimes. So therefore, it's extremely important for us to understand that the right to information and the right to employment have been fundamental ways in which India has fought many grassroots battles. And while it's easy to nip something in the bud on the top, it's very difficult to destroy individual commitment to all these issues spread all over the country. So though the intent doesn't exist, we're still fighting a rearguard battle. I want to end here because I think I've spoken a lot, and I will end here. But it's very difficult for me to communicate to an audience that miles away at a time when it is most inconvenient to me, because I'm 79 and I have an ailing husband. So for me, night is a very difficult time. So if I have taken your time, a little too much of it, I apologize. But it doesn't do justice to what I have to say unless I do some detailing. So the right to question is extremely important. I'll end by saying that Romila Thapar gave a brilliant lecture in Delhi, and the title of her talk was right to question is the basic thing. If you don't have the right to question, to be or not to be, she said, to question or not to question, that is the question. It is really true. If you don't question, you're finished. So we'll all have to question everything that's wrong and be ready to take what comes and to fight it. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Aruna ji. Thank you. It's really voice of a fighter. So let's have the concluding remarks, and after that we will have the question answer session. Mr. Udupa. Yeah.
Yeah, am I audible?
Yes.
Yeah, so I've been put in an unenviable position of having to follow a very tough act. I just want to uh, maybe say one thing that um what Arunaji was talking about was about uh, questioning the state, and whether in India or in US or so many other countries, we are seeing that governments are increasingly becoming more authoritarian, and it's becoming increasingly hard to question the state. But there is also a whole other sphere, which is, in addition to the political sphere, there is also the economic sphere. And I just want to touch a bit upon our right to question in the market and the gig worker law. And taking off a bit from the song of Mohanba that Arunaji was talking about, where he said, Pele wala chor bandukanu mare re, aaj ka chor kalmanu mare, referring to bureaucrats uh, and officials passing orders. Maybe in today's times, he might have said, or he might have sung that abe wala chor digital nu marele ya computer nu marele, because so many decisions are being automated. And I'll just give a couple of examples. One example about how the state is employing digital means to thwart the right to know. An example in India, and unfortunately, I think also increasingly in the world, is the use of digital IDs by governments. And in India, we have Aadhaar. And one way that, uh, like Arunaji was alluding to, that the government is weakening Narega is through having photographs of people working in the work sites, and then trying to use image recognition to see whether people are there genuinely working. And while on the surface, on the face of it, it sounds like it is something good, but what actually happens is that very often the digital technology doesn't work. Either there's no network in the work site, or the images aren't able to genuinely process, do the kind of image processing that's required. As a result, many people who put in a hard day's work end up being denied their just and fair wage and compensation for the work that they have put in. Similarly, many old people whose fingerprints have worn off due to hard manual labor also then cannot uh, annually go and verify that they are still alive by uh, putting their fingerprints in the machine, and as a result, end up losing their pension. So this is how the state is employing digital means, and these are black boxes that we cannot question. They are algorithms that we are just told that these are decisions made by an algorithm. And increasingly now with AI and this whole new uh, redefining of labor relations through the gig economy, where uh, which which Uber driver gets a particular ride, or what the rate of that particular ride is going to be. These are all decisions taken by AI, by an algorithm, which is completely unaccountable. And there is, at least with a state, in theory, a citizen has a right to question. In practice, of course, those in power do not want such a right to be there, and do their best to ensure that they are not accountable to the people. But in the economic sphere, in the sphere of the gig economy, the first battle is even to establish the right to question, where that itself, even in theory, is not yet established. And this is where I must say that the the law for social security of gig workers in Rajasthan, which was a global precedent, the first government in the world to pass a law for social security of gig workers was in the state of Rajasthan in 2023. Unfortunately, then they have subsequently dropped the ball and they have not passed the rules so that the law can actually come into force and be implemented. But the good news is that many other states like Karnataka and Telangana have now picked up the baton and have passed laws. And hopefully this will gather momentum and we can over time maybe even have a law nationally which will set a precedent even globally. And this is something that many unions that have unionized gig workers, these are people who are Uber drivers, they are Amazon delivery persons, and anyone who's really employed through an app. And unions who have unionized gig workers, MKSS, Suffer that Rakshita has set up and is working with, have all done a lot of work to get these laws passed and bringing the right to question into a new domain and into contemporary times. While this establishment of social security is a bit like getting Narega in earlier times, the battle still to establish the right to question in the digital domain where we can ask for algorithmic accountability is one that we are all still fighting for. So I thought this would be an interesting complement to what Arunaji already spoke about also considering the right to question in the economic sphere and in today's increasingly digital first times, what the right to question means for these domains and in our time, in the present times that we live in. So with this, I think I'll stop now. And maybe if people have questions about this, Rakshita has also been doing a lot of work on this and she can answer some questions on this as well. Thank you.
Thank you, Tapasri. So Arunaji is still there, would be still there. Okay, let's I have to have an announcement for the upcoming Saturday, and then we intend to question answer. So coming Saturday, we have a very famous TV journalist in India who goes with the single name Ashutosh. He has written a book which is getting quite popularity, Reclaiming Bharat. And he is on so many channels. He runs his own channel, quite popular channel, Satya Hindi. He is anchor of Satya Hindi. And he will be introduced by Atul Chaurasia, who is a very well-known personality from northern India. He is the managing editor of News Laundry and really is a famous guy for in the Hindi journalism. And concluding remarks by Professor Muqtadar Khan. So over to Dr. Rafat Hussain for moderating the question association.
Thank you, Dr. Raziuddin. So the question and answer session is open now. And thank you all three speakers, Aruna Roy, Rakshita Swami, and Nachiket Udupa. Thank you so much for a passionate talk from Aruna Roy. So let's begin the question and answer session. So there are two options. You can raise your digital hand or show your interest or put your comment in the chat box. So I will continue to monitor both of them. So far, I see some nice comments, but no question in the chat box. Let's see if somebody raised hand. Not yet. Come on, guys. This is a very interesting topic.
Hi, everyone. I have a question. I'm sorry. I'm on the move, so I can't raise my hand.
That's fine.
May I go?
Go
Okay.
ahead.
Hi. Thank you so much. Yes, my name is Shivani Patel. I'm based in Atlanta, Georgia. Arunaji, around 2004 or so, I'd spent some time in Dungarpur around the time of advocacy for Jan Sunwais around right to health. and now I am an epidemiologist working in global health at a university. So my question is this: I have such a deep appreciation for your attention to both the philosophy and also the on-the-ground practice, hearing from the communities, using their insights to advocate for, communal causes, et cetera, common causes, let me say. So I'd love your insight on this question. In the United States, and I think in India as well, we're struggling with, some people will say this is the execution of, democratically elected leaders, what's happening in both our countries, in terms of some of the policies that are, we would argue unethical, anti-poor, etc. But these are, there's the argument that they're democratically elected leaders. And not only that, we know that in our communities are divided on the policies. So I want to build on what the prior speaker said about, questioning the state. And then there are also questions amongst us. So I would love to hear your insights on how you navigate what seems to me to be a tension between the competing demands and interests of the public, and the communities that we belong to and the communities we serve. Thank you.
I think I'll say a few things, and I'm sure Nachiket and Rakshita, if they want to add, they may. The dilemma that we now face is we used to think that if you got educated, that you would be liberal, that you would be secular, that you would be tolerant, that you would understand that there is a right to differ, there is a right to differentiate, there is a right to disagree, the right to dissent, but everything's gone completely overboard now. And it's the mechanism through which the notion of equality is being steadily corroded. Whether it's your market, which doesn't want equality, because if the moment you talk about equality, you're going to ask them questions they simply don't want to answer. Your elected representatives, who by and large are corrupt, who use methods to get to power which are unethical. They don't want any question of equality. They can, in India, we can tamper with our ballot boxes. You can tamper with the election commission. You can take over the election commission. You can destroy the complete rights of these statutory organizations democratically created for oversight. There is no such thing. You can get rid of the election commission and the comptroller and auditor general's powers. Then what's left? But the so-called educated people have not been educated enough to understand that the nature of this kind of use of this kind of power will one day destroy them. They seem to think that so long as it doesn't exactly interfere with their daily consumerist life, it's okay. So what are we concerned with? How much can you spend? How many cars can you buy? Where can you go on holidays? Where will you have a destination wedding? Can you imagine when I was young, for instance, when I was young, all of us who went into university, women, we swore that one of the things that we would do is not spend on our weddings, not have a dowry, not get married in this fashion, and we would protest that we're not there to be sold or bought. Today, despite all the literacy levels that have gone up, all the so-called fancy educational schools and colleges that girls go to, still fall prey to this. So you'll have to look at yourselves, and I have to look at myself. We have to look at society as where we have faith. And I think broadly, it's political education, it's broadly socializing, it's broadly even the educational system, because we've made it so specialized that when I went to college or university in Delhi, I didn't study abroad, but I had the most marvelous education. I did literature, but I could go to the philosophy stacks, I could go to the history stacks, I could walk into the psychology stacks, take all kinds of books, and I was interested in everything. Today, you're only interested in what is your line. It's so specialized and you're so pressured. And there is, of course, the educational loan. So unless you can get there and you get your package, you won't be able to pay back the loan. So they put us into a vicious cycle where even if you understand, and even if you're well educated in the real sense of the word, you're useless. so far as the less literate people are concerned, the consumerist world and the market has made everything in this world transactional, everything in this world absolutely a question of where you will get what you'll invest and where you will get. A whole rights ideology, which is not my rights ideology, has come up with it, which is asking for rights, for a right to earn, the right to do whatever, not worrying about what my income from a mine will do to the miner, not worrying about, I don't know if you all know about silicosis, what happens to a person working on the mine who gets silicosis, not my concern. I want a fancy house, I want stone, I want this, I want that. We are not asking any questions beyond oneself and on consumption. So I think we have a long way ahead to talk about values. We are an integrated society. You'll talk about environment, you'll go on a rally, but you won't have sympathy for the people who've been destroyed, the tribals whose forests have been destroyed, people whose rivers have been destroyed. We won't do anything for them. We won't go into a political battle. That's the only way they will survive. And those who go into political battles for those causes are damned, because they're called human rights activists, they're called Nakshalites in India, they're called this, that, or the other, and all of them are behind bars. And those who explain them and don't even go there to work with them, then they are ideologically on the wrong side of the board, and they are also in jail in India. So I think people like us who are intelligent and who understand will have to do that extra, travel that extra mile, whether we do it through commitment or whether we do it through speech or do we do it through questioning or whether we do it through public action, which is both physical and otherwise. We have to do it. There is no other answer. So long as we live in our comfort zones and we only look at our convenience and comfort, well, the world will go the way it's going.
Thank you.
Thank you. Can I just add briefly?
Please, go ahead.
So Arunaji was referring to political education, and this is also partly in response to a comment by Himalaya in the chat asking about political or social organizations working on such education. So I just want to, there's one banner behind Arunaji of the Loktantra Shala or the School for Democracy. So I just want to mention in 2 minutes what the School for Democracy does. And this is precisely what Himalaya is asking for in the chat, and the kind of political education I think that even Arunaji was alluding to. This is an organization, sister organization that came out of the MKSS and the various struggles that MKSS has been a part of. And it has been inspired by the folk schools that were set up in the Nordic countries when they moved from a monarchy to a democracy, and where a need was felt that people who were earlier subjects in a kingdom are now citizens in a democratic state, and what the difference between the two is to spread awareness about that. And this is really has been, the folk schools there have been, or if we translate it to Hindi, that would be Lok Shala in those countries is now Loktantra Shala in India, or the School for Democracy. And the idea is precisely what Himalayaji is talking about, and the kind of political education that is probably needed so that the kind of issues that the who was she, Shivani, sort of, so that those kind of issues don't come up in the future.
So since you are talking about Himalaya's question, let's continue addressing that. So do you know of political or social organizations that are working on the idea of India in social and educational spheres? Can you name some of them, or both of you, please?
So my response was precisely to this. One example that we know of and we are involved with is the School for Democracy.
Okay, thank you. Okay, so the next one
there is also Sambhavna, which also does special courses in democracy. There are many courses which now run. I can't remember all the courses, but you can actually enroll for a year's course on how to look at and strengthen democracy, to look at all the various aspects of democracy. But if you look at India's population and you look at the numbers of people we reach, it may be a drop in the ocean. But the biggest teacher of real democratic action and democratic sharing is struggle. The right to information movement has taught so many Indians how to struggle, from Kashmir, where an ordinary person asked the chief minister how much fuel he used for his helicopter to reach him, because he was so really upset, because he thought the chief minister was coming to his village and he would use the road, but instead he flew to his village. So he asked him, how much money did you spend on the fuel? And people were shocked that this man was hardly past his 4th class to do it. Chai walas have asked questions of the collector, saying, I've seen your car going with a lapdog. I mean, I want to see your records. And then there have been big questions as well. So I think what we need to do is to question power. If you just don't talk, if you don't question power and talk truth to power, you're damned. And it can be done a million different ways. Today, the kinds of questions that right to information activists are asking is phenomenal. Just the other day, in a city called Madurai in Tamil Nadu, 2,000 activists met. And those 2,000 activists represent, each one of them represents hundreds of other activists. So we are huge in number. And we are continually asking uncomfortable questions. More than 150 of us have been killed just because we've asked questions which the power mafia doesn't want. It's not only the state, but it's also power mafia. It's a sand mafia. It's this mafia, that mafia, shot in front of the High Court, killed, mutilated. So you can understand how powerful information is and the power is to articulate. So somehow, though I'm not advocating that we all go and get killed, but I certainly want to emphasize that the articulation of justice, of equality, of truth is in itself a very, very potential and powerful tool. And I think if we articulate that, then it takes us miles ahead. So I think these schools of where you can get formally educated or informally educated is important, because it gives you structured theoretical education, fills in all your information gaps. But it's the struggle that really makes you commit yourself to do something for the country.
Thank you. Okay, the next question is Prabhya Bhagat, please.
Namaste, Aruna ji. I used to volunteer with Aid Austin. I used to live in Texas, and I have since 2010 moved to India. My question is around social media. I feel like social media has grossly just decreased attention spans and frankly just made people, particularly people with privilege, just increasingly stupid and apathetic. There is, of course, I should start my video. Okay. So I was saying that there is, of course, the occasional Greta Thunberg and Umar Khalid, but a lot of accounts that do question and that do challenge are being blocked, are being asked to shut down. And these are platforms that are ideally meant to connect people, to create a sense of community, but clearly there's a gap. So I wanted to hear from you how you think we can bridge that gap. Thank you.
I think I'd let the younger ones speak first, Rakshita and Nachiket, and then I'll come in, because as you can see, I'm a fuddy-duddy. So you'll probably think I have less. I was brought up in a world where there was no social media. So I still now have to deal with it. But Rakshita and Nachiket, would you like to say something?
Nachiket, why don't you go first? I'll come.
Yeah, so I think this is, I mean, it's a dicey domain. I think a part of the problem is the fact that the social media companies, the more time we spend on social media, the more the social media companies make. And unfortunately, they seem to have figured out that the more agitated and angry we are, I suppose we seem to spend more time on those platforms. So it's sort of leading to a spiral where we have populations that are increasingly, uh, venting out on social media, and that venting out is leading to further venting out by others, and all bite-sized venting out. So I think somewhere it's basically the business model of social media companies that I think we need to really look at and see how we can regulate it. But it's again a double-edged sword, because on the one hand, uh, you want social media to be regulated for precisely the reasons that you mentioned. But on the other hand, given the kind of atmosphere and increasing authoritarianism by the state, any advocacy for regulating social media often is used by the government then to sort of curb free speech, and they use it to then bring censorship, and so it's a double-edged sword, and I think there are no easy answers. But I think here also we need to create space for the right to question social media companies and question their business models, and see how we can give greater voice to users to design these platforms, so that it's not the algorithms and the kind of duration, like increasingly we're going from long videos to short reels and the short attention spans you're talking about. If we can give greater voice to people to sort of counter this and have regulation in a way that is not censorship and not curbing free speech. So I think that's our challenge today. Rakshita, if you want to add anything.
Yeah, just to completely true. I mean, I think we're seeing what it's led to in terms of people being able to say whatever they're able to say and actually face no consequences for it, because you are behind a screen and you think you can get away by saying anything, and that's why you're able to spew so much toxicity on social media, which you would not do face to face. An average person, I mean, we also know the extent of violence that is even happening face to face. And also, I completely agree with your reading of just how short the attentive span of people also is, and the inability to be able to understand a bit of depth and nuance, and everything has to I mean, the bottom line or the conclusion has to emerge in 180 characters, and that's where the truth lies, and it's not between wading through. But I also feel that we, particularly in the sector of gig workers, we've also seen how it is such a spontaneous space for mobilization. There is something that connects, and gig workers who are not able to actually agitate on the ground traditionally the way we understand it, because now they have facial recognition, and the moment it's spotted, their IDs are blocked, are finding ways of starting their own shadow YouTube channels, shadow Twitter accounts, and also mobilizing in very creative ways, which traditionally those of us involved in campaigns and movement spaces have not tapped into this potential at all. So do see those merits, and I completely really do want to re-emphasize what Nachiket said. I think the problem of defining what that alternative governance framework of dealing with social media, which does not mean the state regulating. I mean, that we can't hinge between the state regulating and self-regulation. And what is the framework of governance that we as the public who engage with social media in such a regular basis, what do we have to spell out, and what alternative are we even providing of how we hold big tech and state to account, because political parties also now use social media so extensively to come into power. So how do we use platforms to hold big tech and political parties to account, and how do we also build a governance framework, and how do all of us articulate
Thank you.
what
Let's move on. Thank you so much. We got the point. So there is another broader question. Victor Ghalib is asking, a broader question is Bharatiya Samvidhan is being destroyed with focus on anti-religious pluralism, distracting masses from other problems. Do you have to say anything?
I want a little clarity on the question. Will you tell me what you mean by anti-religious pluralism?
Victor Galik, please come on. Can you clarify? Okay, if not, then let's move on to the Ambassador Ishrat Aziza, please.
I just have to say one sentence. This is Mohan Bhagat. Aruna, I have no words to thank you because you are absolutely right. The only way that India will become free, truly free, is when every child of India is raised to think like a scientist. One of the things about science is that there is no such as the last word in science. As long as you continue to ask these abstract questions, it empowers you to ask the same questions from those people who claim that they know more than you do. Thank you very much, and God bless you. And also, God bless Bunker. I hope he is doing well. All the best.
Thank you.
Thank you very much, Moji. And Bunker is not that well, but thank you for your good thoughts. Thank you.
God bless.
Thank you. Ambassador Ishrat Aziz, please.
Thank you. Thank you. Yes, I listened with rapt attention. And I would say this. Aruna Roy has made reason eloquent. You know, often reason is not very eloquent, but she made it eloquent. And oratory is often not true, but oratory is always very kind of moving. But she has made, as I said, reason eloquent. There are some very memorable lines I would remember. One is त्रिशूल नहीं, तलवार नहीं, काम का अधिकार चाहिए. Very memorable. And then हमारा पैसा, हमारा हिसाब. And yet again, she was so right when she said, you should not have a timeline. When you do undertake something big, do not have a timeline. And what she really means is that you should have patience. Patience is the bridge to the future. So really, I enjoyed it. I benefited like others. I have a question, and it's a very simple question. It is also a very general question. You know, I have so often seen, there is a very famous line which says, if you are not an idealist, if you are not an idealist before 25, you are a scoundrel. And if you are an idealist after 25, you are a fool. So I have seen so many people in life, people who start with idealism and then get co-opted. Is there a remedy to this? I'm sure she has a lot of experience of life. She can give some wise answers. Thank you.
I'm afraid I am not wise. I am still a learner, and I don't know whether I'll ever reach the kind of wisdom or the level that I think many people before me and around me have reached. But I think idealism is different from commitment. You know, some of us who have continued to do this work, we've been bothered about privilege, about wanting to share privilege. We've been bothered about inequality. We've been bothered about the fact that there is this continuing sense of guilt that you have taken away from somebody, maybe not personally, but in a historic sense. What you have got must be shared. If that feeling doesn't exist, then idealism is just peripheral and temporary. But for those of us who genuinely feel this, and in my generation, there were so many of us who felt that, not in percentage terms, but in numbers. I have huge number of people who lived, and some of them have passed away, my friends, but who continue to do whatever they felt would at least make them share a small percentage of their privilege. And how enormously privileged I am, and living in that hut, living on a minimum wage at that time of 444 rupees a month. Sorry, it was how much was it? 14, Chachike, do a quick mathematics. It was 14 rupees a day, would be how much in a month?
420.
420 rupees is all that I earned, and I lived on that. But to me, even at that time, there were many questions of my privilege. You know, during one of the worst droughts that affected Rajasthan, in that house that I showed you in the beginning, Nikhil Shankar and I, and Anshi Shankar's wife and their children, we used to eat vegetable and roti in one meal and dal and roti in the other meal. Our vegetable, we told ourselves we would buy nothing that cost more than 4 rupees a kilo. Nevertheless, we were affluent compared to our neighbors who just had bare staple. Even if they had that bare staple, it was wonderful, with salt or with just garlic paste. So, you know, really it's so relative. So I always feel that sitting in that mud hut, I was privileged, trying to, wanting to, and did live like other people, I was privileged. And also I'm so privileged in my head. I used to sit in that mud hut, and sometimes, because we had a small transistor radio, I could access BBC. And I would listen to programs on Shakespeare. I would listen to programs on a number of things, which were far beyond the reach of my fellow beings in that village. I'll always be privileged. If you strip me of every economic privilege, I'll still be privileged. I have a mind which has been centuries from my family, maybe many, many generations, they have spent thinking about how to improve the mind. And my parents spent so many years imparting the most extraordinary knowledge to me, let alone schools. How can that privilege ever be shared? So I think the most important privilege I feel now, at the age of 79 that I am today, that needs to be shared is the privilege of thought, the privilege of understanding, the privilege of analysis, the privilege of knowing that it's always a process of learning forever. But that privilege has to be transferred. That's why for me, the School for Democracy is a wonderful space, because you don't transfer just information. You have to transfer the way thinking occurs. How do you think? How do you actually arrive at a conclusion? And how do you know whether you're right or wrong? Whether it's relative, because it's always relative. Relatively better or not is something that we all have to strive to do.
Wonderful. Thank you, Arunaji. Next question is from Poras Dada Bhai, who is the president of United for Peace. So he's asking question, Muslim in India is 14%, but college admissions are 4%. Why? I don't know if this is a question relevant in this topic, but anyway, please go ahead.
I think there are many, many reasons, but I'm just going to say some things, some of them. I think many Muslims are very poor. And I think the reason why they are unable to access these things is because of their economic levels. I don't think it's a social issue at all. I think it's an economic issue. And I also think that the way India is going now and mistreating its Muslims and Christians and any other minorities, there is a fear, perhaps, which prevents sending, say, girls to colleges and to institutions of higher learning. There have been, including, you know, that there was this famous young man who committed suicide in Hyderabad in the Central University. What was his name?
Rohit Vemula.
Vemula. And he left one of the most beautifully moving letters behind after his death. So the kind of society we are building today, built on hatred, built on anger, which is falsely incited, hatred, anger, and complete lack of reason, building fear. I think many parents would be nervous of sending their children to school, college, and expose them to these things. That could also be one reason. But I think poverty is a very big reason why children don't go to higher education. And today it's becoming more and more expensive. State education is disappearing. When I went to university in Delhi, I paid 16 rupees a month to go to one of the best colleges in Delhi. I paid 12 rupees a month for my transport to college and back. And I did not take a loan. Today, unless you take a loan, you can't pay your college fees in many places. And the government colleges are so few and far between, you don't get admission. So I think the anomalies are many. Maybe Nachiket and Rakshita want to add?
Okay, Rashta looks like is not here right now. So the next, we were talking about Victor Ghalib Saab. He wants to clarify his question. Go ahead, Victor Saab. Victor Ghalib, please. I think he has technical difficulties. So let's move on to the next one. There is a long question from...
Can you hear me? I'm sorry. See, I'm just having trouble with this mute. My grandkids do a much better job than I do. I want to thank you all. My question was, from what we hear, it looks like it's happening in America as well. There is a lot of distraction based on race, religion, pluralism. So is that something that is really destroying the Indian Constitution, and as a result, they're distracted from other real issues that we are facing in India? I don't know if that clarifies my question.
Nachiket, would you like to take it? I also have to say something, but you could go first.
Yeah, so I think what the right is doing, certainly they want to divide people, and this is whether in India or the US. I think whether in India based on religion, in the US maybe based on race and other things. They want to divide the electorate so that they can continue to be in power. And so in that sense, I think they see them as tools of distraction so that people don't pay attention to the worsening economy or how their own economic circumstances are becoming worse off, and still voting for governments that are not necessarily in their best interest due to these distractions. So in that sense, I would agree, but I would not characterize it as distractions that are, I would say these distractions are the ones that are a threat to the Constitution, and trying to safeguard values like secularism or equality, I think are necessary to ensure that the Constitution survives and thrives. But Aruna ji, if you want to add more.
I want to proceed along the same lines as you, Nachiket, but I want to say is that let's see what the Constitution says. The misinterpretation of secularism as atheism is one of the biggest attacks on the Constitution by the right. They say that secular, they have all kinds of derogatory terms there. They call it secular. That is the way they describe secularism. And the Constitution says the state will be secular, but gives us full freedom to religion. For any religious practice, it gives us full freedom. It gives religions full freedom to set up educational institutions and other institutions necessary for for transference of knowledge or information about their religions. I think we have a tendency in this country to use very, very little information and knowledge and pass it off as profound thought and clear analysis, which is terrible. And we have to stand up and argue pleasantly, but be systematic and, completely demolish these arguments. I'll tell you one thing. Can you imagine a retired High Court judge of Rajasthan about 10 years ago said that pearls, these pearls that we get from the sea, are actually the tears of peacocks. Now, this is so absurd. How can you say that? How can you say such a stupid thing? So I agree that we have to bring in some kind of scientific reasoning and rationality back to our debates. And I also think that education systematically is derailing the kind of genuine pluralism that existed in India. I'm called Aruna because my parents were admirers of Aruna Asaf Ali. I'm called Aruna because of that. And Aruna herself was a Hindu woman, a Brahmo Hindu married to a Muslim. Tara Ali Beg was a Hindu woman married to Ali Beg. There were so many people. And in my in-laws, because I'm married into a Brahmo family, I have 2 Muslim kakimas. I've got a Parsi Mami Ma. I've got a Sikh aunt. I've got a Jewish uncle. I've got every religion under the sun. So when we sit at table, it's not a question of what religion you belong to, but what kind of thoughts you may have. So there might be any kind of discussion on any issue, but there's no problem with being of a different religion and different politics as well. That kind of India, I think, has been lost. And that used to be the hallmark of an elitist Indian in those days, was how progressive and how open-minded were you in understanding the other. Today, the other is being vilified. And I think systematically we all have to struggle, because my generation, I think, has made a mistake. It just felt that after Gandhiji's assassination, India was rid of a certain kind of ideology, but it worked underground systematically and extremely well for 100 years to establish the concepts of a right-wing religious society as a theocratic society being the answer to India. And I think I'm not a practicing Hindu, but I'm born Hindu. And I think that Hinduism too isn't like that. The real Hinduism is a very pluralistic religion. In and of itself, it accepts so many sects. There is no concept of excommunication, for instance, amongst the Hindus. No matter what you profess, you have equal right to cremation and whatever else. So I think some of the better aspects of, there are terrible things like caste. I'm not arguing against the terrible things in Hinduism, but there are some good things that we could talk about. So I think what we need to cultivate is also talk about what constitutes a good cultural Hindu and how what they are projecting today is against Hinduism, because this is not Hinduism. It is prejudice, it's distorted. But that kind of discourse has not been shaped, it has not taken place, it is not there in the public domain, and you can't go anywhere to listen to a person who's a secular Hindu. And the last of them who said all this was Mahatma Gandhi, and they shot him.
Arunaji, beautiful thoughts. Let's move on to.
Quickly, Arunaji, my in-laws are Hindu. My late wife was just like what you say you are. Also, my uncle, my father's younger brother, was the Chief Justice of the Supreme Court in India. Things have changed so much. I feel sad.
May I know his name?
Hamidullah Beg.
Oh, I see. Okay.
Okay, thank you. So thank you both.
May I just say that I may have to leave in the next 10 minutes?
Yeah, that's what we are trying to wrap up. So please be brief. And there's a one long question from Ira Anjali Anwar. Can you share your thoughts on how we can build or rebuild third world internationalist movement, especially at a time when our government industry is deeply complicit in the ongoing genocide? Before the Bombay High Court gave CPM permission to protest the genocide, a judge that denied the request started saying something like that you have enough problem here, focus on that. But we are on an increasingly critical part of the war economy supply chain. So how do we build solidarities as part of daily Indian struggles for livelihood, increasing state repression and so forth? So it's related to the world affairs as well as the Indian problem.
Ira, I think, such a huge task. And I'm a pipsqueak. I'm just one little drop in the huge ocean. But let me say that we have started with others something called Progressive International. And many parts of the world we have joined together to articulate the need for coming together across nationalities to create a group of people who might think, and they're a motley group. Chomsky is part of that, but also you have people who, like me, who are not great guns, part of that. You have ex-ministers, part of that. And I think recently Progressive International went to The Hague to get a very important decree. And I think maybe Nachiket will be able to talk more about it. We got a decree, and it was important in the issue of Palestine. So I think there are lots of things that we've been able to do. I'm not physically present in all these places, but we can do them. And I think we just have to keep trying. And there is no such thing as prediction in all these things.
Thank you. So in the interest of time, let's move on and wrap up this session.
Ira, will you please get in touch with me? We'll continue this conversation separately.
Offline, please. Yeah, thank you. And the last question probably will be from Abdul Jabbar sir.
Wonderful. Thank you. Thank you very much. I kind of remarkable presentation today. I kind of most of the time when I come to this forum, I don't know anything about the speaker, the subject. I learned remarkable lessons today. Thank you for that. So you mentioned about you were born in Tamil Nadu. And then I think I'm from Tamil Nadu. I just want, because Tamil Nadu is a very progressive social justice kind of environment. Even if you look at, I listen to Tamil songs every day while driving, Kannadasan songs. So I think my question for you here, did any of those your experiences in Tamil Nadu impacted on your life work?
I think I'm barely a Tamilian, but I agree with you that it's a very progressive state. I'll give you one small example. And Ira might also be, I hope she's listening to this, that what we need to build on in India, because we can't always go by the worst that happens in India. We have to think of all the best that happens in India. We were in the School for Democracy, it held a big meeting in Kanyakumari, and Nachiket was also there. And we were staying in the YMCA, all of us, and we were mainly North Indians. There were some South Indians. And they asked us, do you eat meat? Are you non-vegetarians or vegetarians? So they said, we are both. So they said, okay, we'll make both kinds of food. So one day they made, for the non-vegetarians, they made chicken. One day they made fish. One day they made mutton. And one day they made beef. When the beef was served, the North Indian Hindus went berserk. They just couldn't understand. So the South Indians, since I do understand Tamil, they asked me, are they all Brahmins? So I said, no, they're not Brahmins. So the answer I got in good Tamil was that, but in our district, the only people who don't eat beef are the Brahmins. Otherwise, the Hindus also eat beef. So I think what we need to say is that these are all cultural definitions. They're not religious definitions at all. What you eat in Rajasthan, nobody eats non-vegetarian because there's some problem with, historical problem with killing animals because their entire wealth was milch cattle. So practically everyone's a vegetarian in Rajasthan. But it's not so in Tamil Nadu, it's not so in Kerala. And you can be a good Hindu and eat beef. So I feel that all these stereotypes have to be completely broken down. And I felt that day, quite frankly, that I should leave Northern India and go and settle back in Tamil Nadu. But I can't for several reasons. So I didn't. So I get that feeling when I go to Kerala and Tamil Nadu that they are very rational, sane societies still there, working for a universal kind of viewpoint rather than limited viewpoints. But what is to be done? Northern India dominates our politics. It's going to dominate even more if it brings in some new legislations about restricting voting patterns. But I think that's why it's important to fight and struggle. But I must say, I have a very sneaky sense of pleasure when Tamil Nadu says, okay, if going to impose Hindi on us, we cut every damn Hindi word off, I think. They've cut off the rupee sign also. That's also gone overboard. And they say, if you insist on any of this, we declare the Republic of Tamil Nadu.
Okay.
So I feel
Thank you.
that kind of federalism, if it lives, India will survive.
Thank you.
Thank you. So, a quick question from Nidhi. Nidhi, are you still there? Because you keep raising hand and then lowering. Nidhi, go ahead.
Thank you. Yeah.
That
So,
was the last question.
yeah, thank you very much. मैडम नमस्ते और आपने जितनी मेहनत की है संघर्ष किया है उसका फायदा हम सभी को मिल रहा है और जिसको डेली डे टू डे लाइफ में हम लोग फेस कर रहे हैं जी रहे हैं तो मैं कुशलगढ़ में हूँ बांसवाड़ा डिस्ट्रिक्ट जो कि डूंगरपुर के पास है और वहाँ कुशलगढ़ ब्लॉक में काम कर रही हूँ एम्प्लॉयमेंट पे ट्राइबल वुमेन्स के लिए पिछले 10 सालों से एंड नाउ 8,000 वुमेन्स आर वर्किंग टुगेदर प्रोजेक्ट मेनली दे आर ट्राइबल्स तो पहली बात तो ये और दूसरी ये कि काम के एरिया सब एक दूसरे से जुड़े हुए हैं तो काफी ग्रामीण महिलाएं आती है और आपने बिल्कुल सही कहा कि राइट टू क्वेश्चन तो पहले तो सवाल पूछने में थोड़ा संघर्ष करना पड़ता है लेकिन धीरे धीरे आपकी छवि और छाप ऐसी हो जाती है कि लोग भ्रष्टाचार से डरने लग जाते हैं जो भ्रष्टाचार करते हैं तो वो हमारी कलम और हमारे नेटवर्क से फिर एक फोन पे आकर के हमारे काम को कर देते हैं और जिन लोगों ने भ्रष्टाचार किया है वो लोग घर आकर के उन लोगों के साथ जिसके साथ इंजस्टिस किया था क्योंकि हम नरेगा की बात कर रहे हैं या हम जो भी जिसमें सरकारी योजनाओं का पैसा लोगों को मिलना चाहिए हमारा काम वाली बातें तो यू विल बी वेरी हैप्पी टू नो कि हमारे प्रयासों से ग्राउंड लेवल पे लोगों को हमारे इंस्टीट्यूशन के थ्रू थोड़ी भी मदद मिलती है तो जो जिन लोगों ने भ्रष्टाचार किया है चाहे वो मेट हो चाहे सरपंच हो सचिव हो या कोई और हो वो आकर के लोगों को घर आकर के उसका पैसा दे देती है सो दिस इज द अचीवमेंट विच वी गेन एंड यू विल मतलब मेरे को तो ये एक्सपीरियंस था ही नहीं कि घर आकर के एक तारीख पे बता देगा कि मैं 6 तारीख को आकर आपका बाकी का पैसा दे दूंगा तो एक एक्सपीरियंस यदि सफल हुआ है तो ये आज का एक्सपीरियंस बता रही हूँ जिसका आप वंडरफुल वो करेंगी देखिए ये महिला मेरे पास आई ये पुरुष का फोटो है और आधार कार्ड है और वो अपना मस्ट्रॉल का कॉपी लेके आया और मैंने सब इसमें ऑनलाइन देखा तो 83,000 वॉज पेंडिंग तो मैंने आज इसको फोन लगाया सचिव को कि भैया क्या चक्कर है तो उन्होंने कहा मैडम मैं मंडे को आकर के और इनका हिसाब से साफ कर दूंगा सो दिस इज अ पावर ऑफ क्वेश्चन सो आई थिंक this is my experience which I want to share.
Very well done. So ma'am has to leave now. So I pass on to Dr. Raziuddin and thank you so much all three speakers. It was a passionate, wonderful speech. Dr. Raziuddin, please back to you.
Thank you, Rafat. So, well, thank you again to all the three speakers. I think you have to leave. So I will not ask any question. But there are many issues which is still, one should ask and discuss, especially on the poor section of the society. I'm always very curious that we put all the blames, rightly so maybe, on the last 10 years of Modi government, but long 70 years of very secular socialist government of Congress also didn't do much to poor and minorities. I mean, they remained uneducated, they remained poor. Not any major provisions known to, at least for the Muslims, whose vote banks on which Congress was always relying upon. I mean, it's not only in 10 years that everything became so bad. It was already very bad, even in the communist rule state for 30, 80 years. Jyoti Basus and others, Muslims remained very poor, uneducated. I do not know what was then their role, what is now here. We can easily blame because it is a communal government, no doubt. It is the whole politics is communal. But even the very secular and the very tolerant governments really either ignored or didn't do much. So that is a question that haunts even the very secular or liberal people like us. We are far for any sympathy to any BJP related thing, but still we can question that what was their role? How did we come this far in this state, in this situation where these guys are capitalizing now? But that is something that haunts us. Anyway.
I want to respond to this because I can't leave it unanswered or unresponded.
Oh, okay, thank you then.
Yeah. Because I was born a year before independence and I've lived right through in northern India. Unfortunately, I have not lived in southern India. I've lived in northern India, and I know where I live and work now, I have so many literate Muslims, girls who have done so well, have gone to college, to university, who've done well. I have a fellow colleague of mine, a woman, Zarina, who's just passed her 6th standard, but who has become now computer literate, and she's actually doing accounts with me. So I don't think we should either of us use these universal and condemning assessments. You see, it all depends on the pocket. In India, I don't know what happens in UP. I can't take any responsibility for UP. But I can talk about Rajasthan, that our Muslims families, whether men or women, girls and boys, have done well. I have a neighboring village from which a young Muslim woman has become a national, has represented national in sports. She does something that's so many balls now, I don't know, some new game. And her mother, inspired by all the kinds of things that carry on in Rajasthan, insisted that her daughter could wear shorts. The whole community opposed her, but she said, no, she will wear shorts because she has the potential of becoming a national champion. I don't care what you have to say. So there are many good things, there are lovely things that are happening. And I really think that what we need to also think of, you're right, there were many wrong things, but let's not forget that all the things that we claim for, please forgive me, but all my friends who are in the US now, you were facilitated by Nehruvian education to go there. If Nehru had not set in motion all this, which we oppose so much, we all traditionalists oppose this kind of education, which made you capable of only going and giving in a foreign country. But Nehru did it. Nehru brought in so many good things. The Congress also admit India is too big. Yes. And there are problems all over the place. Of course, they made so many mistakes. Everyone makes mistakes. There's nobody who doesn't make mistakes. But this is a communal government, and the previous government was not a communal government.
Yes.
And that makes a very big difference.
Very big difference, no doubt. Yes.
Okay, let's wrap up.
Thank you so much now. And
Thank you. Thank you, all three speakers. Thank you so much.
It is time.